recording to like start going on it.
Recording is on.
Here we go. Welcome to the weekly DXdao call. And this week we're actually changing things up a bit as discussed last week. We felt there is a need to have a forum for discussing kind of resource planning, coordination, and process a bit. This call, for the recent months has been simply like a recap of all product kind of updates and the goings on and the governance of the biz dev calls, which I think has been useful. But I think what we're going to try to do now is alternate and do that, once every 2 weeks. And on the other week, we'll do resource coordination. And in addition to that, I think we're going to attempt to kind of transition like the information dissemination into more of a bi-weekly or maybe eventually weekly newsletter. So I think that that's an effort that's kind of getting ramped up. And so, I think for now we'll keep doing recaps on this call every other week, but I imagine it's possible in the future if like a newsletter really does cover things perfectly well that maybe we won't do recaps on a call. We'll see. But yeah, I guess since this is the first like resource coordination call, if you link to, this is just the weekly meeting post, and then I linked to Chris's post as well within that. And he did a great job kind of like teeing this meeting up. I'm just gonna post like his list of questions and things that we can discuss. And since this is the first one, I guess maybe, we're gonna have to figure it out as we go here a little bit. But probably part of the goal here is just to actually define what is this call, what's the focus, what are the other calls gonna be, and like at what level are we talking about things. Like, I think there is a need to even get down to like what are individual people doing? Like, are they happy with what they're doing or what they're currently working on? Are they busy enough, et cetera, et cetera? But I don't know. I don't think we're going to probably get to that today, and maybe this isn't even the venue for that. I think maybe it makes sense to start at a little bit of a higher level and kind of talk about the process itself and like how projects are doing like at a product level. Like, what's the staffing needs on each product? How does it fit into what we're doing? Like, should it have more resources, less? Probably more at this point, but like, yeah. So with that, I think maybe we can kick it off. Chris Powers or other Christopher, I know you had thoughts about this stuff too. I'm curious to get your comments as we start here.
Yeah, if I can actually, can I share my screen? Because I provided a little bit more thought on the kind of post I had this morning.
Cool.
So let me see. Yeah. Cool. How do I? Oh, sorry.
I see some color-coded charts coming.
Yeah, man.
That looks good.
Does this work? You guys can kind of see this?
Yeah, we can.
Cool. Yeah. So just kind of, I think what I think we should kind of talk about today, just building off of kind of the post. I think, meetings, what, when, and logging, reporting to the community. These are things we already kind of do, but discussing kind of how that will take place. And I think, as we look at 2021, I think it's important that we, adapt the meeting schedule to different needs, and also think about kind of incorporating different frequencies, right? Whether it's a monthly meeting on partnerships or this kind of bi-weekly one. I think it's important that we kind of start the conversation on that. Productivity software stack. This is something we've also been kind of talking about in terms of marketing and community, but there's also been some discussion on like kind of GitHub management on the development side. So maybe it's kind of a way to talk there. Current work status. What are people working on and where are their upcoming gaps? And then this is kind of, I think, a thing that we struggle with, but just how do we coordinate quote unquote large movements, right? i.e. setting up a Discord server or like lots of things where we kind of have some momentum, but there's just not like really clear way to like, we can get the community, convince them to all like move to one thing, whether that's doing a new initiative or setting a new meeting. I think we kind of need to figure out a little bit about that. And then lastly, kind of squads and budget. And so I think this is an important part of this conversation, because I think it gives the macro view that we need to be able to like dive into some of these smaller things. I think specifically as it gets to like what workers are doing. So I kind of built off some of the post, the fractalization post, and then also Christopher's follow-up on the squads. And then we'd also done some budget stuff here. So I just kind of like said, okay, these are like the squads or kind of groups that we kind of organize around, and how do we kind of work through it. So I do have some color coordination here, which will come in handy in a second. So I think these are kind of the main ones that we're all pretty familiar with, right? Omen, Mesa, Swapper, those are kind of clear ones that have product, and we're kind of working on those. Governance, kind of catches all. Obviously, there's like a day-to-day proposal submissions and kind of that whole thing, but there's also governance as a product. Augusto is working on kind of the DX voting DApp. Marketing community, this is community management, content creation, also the DXdao .eth website. Partnerships and biz dev, external relations, how we kind of funnel opportunities into different squads, and then ecosystem and product development. This is kind of a catch-all that I had more for how do we make these different, like when are we spending time on making these products like interact, and then how are we thinking more ahead about like what products we want to build, where should like kind of DXdao go, maybe the longer term one. And obviously this is just a first go at this, and I don't, would be interested to kind of hear some thoughts on how these structures form and whether these are kind of the groups there. And I just kind of put some of the squad guide or maybe squad scout, looking for different ones. I think people that have kind of taken a leadership role in these already, and are kind of maybe answerable to the community without having kind of a formal component. And so what I did was I looked at all of our contributors, right? So I think I hopefully got everyone in here, and I just kind of went through on my own and said, what are people working on and how much time are they spending on that, right? So Geronimo is spending a lot of time on Omen, right? So he's got 80% of his time on Omen, but he's also, I think, contributing to some conversations on Swapper and Mesa, and how those kind of interact. And then I think for the marketing community, he's been doing the website, kind of helping on the website there. So you can kind of see for each of these, the same thing for Augusto has been working on Swapper, but he's also building the governance DApp. So I thought this would kind of be a good way of understanding where people are working. And as I said, I gathered this from my knowledge from the last couple of months from looking at worker proposals. But I have a spreadsheet with this that I think would be good if people kind of looked at and kind of checked my work. And it should be pretty easy to adjust if you want to even get into the specific percentages here. I also put some kind of people at the bottom that maybe are not necessarily like full-time workers yet, like, Phil and Peppo. And I also just had kind of an other one just as a category to see how we're kind of allocating resources. So then I took in the spreadsheet, I looked at the worker compensation for everyone on this list, and I basically just multiplied your monthly compensation by the percentage time that you're spent working on this squad to come up with some type of monthly spend on each of the squad. And so this is where I kind of landed out here. I think Swapper is in, I guess, first place in these rankings in terms of like where we're spending resources. I think that makes sense considering we've kind of been spending a lot of times building and launching that the last month, and I think it's a pretty core product. Second is Omen, right? This is probably has the most established team in DXdao working on this product, and that's kind of been there. And then everything else is kind of spread out pretty evenly through the different areas, and kind of begins to see a little bit of kind of where our resources are going and where we should be spending. Obviously, like the Mesa one, I think is interesting because it's low, and that also includes Martin, who is I don't think has submitted his worker proposal yet, but it shows that we have not been allocating resources really to Mesa that much. A note on the kind of the monthly burn here says 120,000. If you don't include the like Peppo and the auditors or people that are, I would say, not like consistent full-time monthly contributors, that's like another 8 or 9,000. So that would lower it. And then there's been about 20,000 of a monthly burn that's been added over the last month from Keenan. And then I also actually just went ahead and included Pulp on this to get a little bit better overview of that. So that's kind of
couple of comments on this, Chris, to add a little more color on that about the this one. So like I think one thing to point out here is Swapper is the only product where we're actually deploying smart contracts to. So that probably is that's definitely more cost because it means more audits. I think Swapper is the driver of most of our auditing budget. Swapper and like governance stuff integrating with things, because that's where the smart contracts are. We haven't deployed smart contracts, I don't think, for Omen. Although I think Omen is sort of like, I view that as like almost our flagship product where a lot of the focus is on the front end. Mesa, I don't think this is a forward-looking budget, right? Because I don't think we've really spent anything on Mesa.
Yeah, I mean, so this is it's basically all from this right here, because I've got Martin on 70% for Mesa, and then I know you've been kind of contributing. I you like 20% of your time, and then
it's not even close to 20% of my time, but yeah, like I think Rails is something that's not on here, which is also like Federico's been driving. That's it. I just wanted to add those comments.
Cool. Other thoughts? I can't actually see the chat, so if there are questions there, I can't see that. But other kind of thoughts on this? How do people kind of, any surprises in terms of like maybe where we're spending kind of resources or anything that maybe we kind of off the bat want to change? And as John said, this is like forward looking, and I'd say kind of represents the next month or two.
So like someone's speaking. So at the same time, like if we look at this, the monthly spend for Swapper is high here, and as John said, like we're not gonna do audits every month. Probably maybe just in the start here, we're gonna have a couple of audits, but I think monthly spend like versus like marketing or whatever it could be could look like it could be like one-time costs that Swapper has right now, right? Is that right?
Yeah. And so just to kind of look at the breakdown here, so blue is Swapper here, so people that are kind of contributing to this, and this is, and again, this is like what I kind of put here. But because it is, we have the smart contract component and the auditor, right? So you can see I have 60% of Phil's time on Swapper, and then obviously Federico, I've got 80%, and I've got Rails under ecosystem and product development here. But like, 2 months ago, Federico was doing 80% of Rails and maybe, 10, 20% of Swapper. So, and even like, so I mean, I think also, I think it makes sense that Omen and Swapper are where we're spending most of our time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it totally makes sense. Like auditing is definitely like a front-loaded cost. Like it's what you're doing that kind of before you deploy smart contracts, and then like for the Swapper core contracts, for example, they're kind of immutable and not so. We might do more smart contracts around Swapper, like staking contracts, etc., which will require audits. But yeah, I definitely agree that that element of the cost will probably go down, or is front-loaded would be a way to think of it.
So this is a great sheet. Thanks a lot for creating this. But I think we should be very clear here that this does not scale. I mean, even here, it's, I mean, like, like what is this really telling me? It tells me, we have, a lot of stuff going on, right? So.
What do you mean it doesn't scale? Like what doesn't scale?
I mean, like, how could we like onboard more people here? I mean, yes, we can like definitely add this like into, we can add more rows into the sheet, right? But do we make it really easier for anyone to like come into the community? or
Yeah.
like start participating.
So you're
And
saying
so-
organizational structure doesn't scale.
Organizational structure, yes, right. And so maybe if you go like one slide back, you had like something nice there, and that was like this squad guide, and that is kind of like really key for me in all of this discussion, right? Because like squad guide, that is like something that the community can handle, right? But if we have like these 20 people, and all the community has to like vote continuously like on 20 people, or like even more in the future, right? I mean, what if we eventually will be 200 people, right? I mean, it's not going to scale to anything unless we really have squad guides, and that's what I would prefer to see, right? So that we have like this budget per squad, and then like the squad guide kind of like has like the flexibility and freedom to allocate these resources to whoever they see fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so this is kind of meant to be like a state of where we're at and kind of how we I think the discussion on like onboarding and funneling people is important, and we can kind of think about how to do that too. I don't know if squad guides are like important to that kind of component. I think to me, it's just these are kind of people that have kind of emerged from the community to kind of do this, and I think that those are should help clarify things. I mean, I think there's a lot of structure to like allocating budgets to individuals that like would that just required a lot of structure, and I think we need to kind of grow before we build that structure.
I think it makes sense to me to think of this like from a high level as like these squads or products, right? And kind of like, in terms of what is maybe the focus of like the broader community and like the budgeting stuff. I mean, I think that the individual like thing is important for, coordination amongst those people and for the people who are getting organized in the squads. But yeah, I don't think that your average community voter should have to worry about that bigger chart so much, right? Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I basically agree with what Christopher's saying here. Like,
yeah, I do. I guess I think that's like a separate thing. I think we need to like worry on like I completely agree that everyone should not be voting on every single individual worker proposal like as like a long-term thing or kind of need that, and we need to figure out how to kind of structure that. Yeah.
Chris, if you go back to the other page, what really, now that you have the state of, what you really want to know now is like of those people on there that are part of a certain squad, like Violet, I mean like Milan, he was let's say, or Federico, for example, had been focusing a big percentage on one squad, and there's a clear need that another squad coordinator or scout needs help, and he's basically saying, is there someone in this community or outside the community that I can pull in because I need more help on this squad? So knowing the state of is great, but then how to alter this, like, oh wait, we don't need this many people on Swapper the next month because we've launched it and now we'll have extra resources that we're doing Swapper. Where do we reallocate those? And so that's the decision that like the coordinators or us as a group need to then adjust where the resources are being pointed to. So like that's the next step, right?
I think that's like what we should be doing on like this call. Right. And I think we're taking that kind of high level view of being like, and just seeing how we're spending on Swapper. I mean, I think it's both Zet and John kind of said was, oh, well, that's where our resources are being voted now. But in a month or two, like that's probably not going to be. So where will those resources go? And that's kind of like the next level of coordination between the squads.
How far forward do we plan those stuff? Because we're already doing the proposals like 2 months forward.
Yeah.
So every single individual will probably ask around and see like what where will I work on these 2 months?
So I think what Christopher is raising is like, okay, the budget for this past month for Swapper was like 30K. Like if we have a roadmap and the Swapper squad thinks over the next 3 months we're going to need more resources than we had, we're probably going to need a budget of 40K per month for the next 3 months. So does the DAO say, okay, we're allocating 120K towards Swapper, and then that gets divided as needed per month? Or is that like, or is it we have all the resources that are available, can we pull from existing known resources into Swapper rather than like say, here is the budget and then push the budget down at people? So there's like two different approaches. One is they're opposite each other actually.
If you directed this question to me, I am for the former, so budgets per squad. Like ideally, you have like this scout or whatever, right? We want to call it, that creates like a budget, like a timeline, how many people they need, and over how long time horizon they want to do it, and not just like 1 or 2 months, but ideally at least 3 months. And then they defend that budget against us, the community, and then we either say yes or no, and then that budget will be released on a monthly basis if we have decided to do that.
I actually, not just budget, I would say like roadmap or like strategy, kind of like this is what we're doing over the next couple months, and it's gonna like, this is the budget for it, and that kind of goes together, and then that's what like a community could vote on. I think that's definitely where we should be moving towards, and those are like the kind of almost like quarterly reports or quarterly like forward looking guidance, but just the plan.
Yes, exactly right. My point is just what I'm trying to like emphasize here, and which I'm not sure like which is coming across correctly, is that defending that or the community will need like basically one person to interact with that in regards to that, right? That they can like really grill on these questions, that they can make sure. I mean, we are basically like entrusting that one person like maybe like with $100,000, right? So we can ask that person like very like in-depth questions, versus like, for example, if we, if the community asks like 5 people that want to like contribute there, then the questions will not be that dense, right? Number one, because of the bandwidth that a community has, right? They cannot like ask the same 5 questions to like 5 people. But then also shared responsibility is like always kind of like, someone else will take care of it, right? But if we have like this scout who's more or less responsible for it, we can have like a much more, like a tighter feedback loop as well between the community and the squads.
Yeah, it's funny. Go ahead.
I thought like maybe Scout has too much power, to decide like who gets paid, like, and like I don't know, like who would that be and like how would that work?
Yeah, it's first off, it's interesting. I spent like 10 minutes on the thesaurus looking for words for different ones, and I like guide, but I guess scout is kind of sticking out. And so I guess Christopher, I'd be worried about creating a structure like that as kind of Milan says, that kind of gives a lot of power to a single individual. And I kind of prefer is like, how can we create a governance structure for those squads to accomplish the same kind of accountability that you're talking about with a single individual? And I think this is kind of where you get into like actual sub DAOs and like fractalization. And I think that the governance of that is a challenge, but I think that we should build towards that type of formal governance structure rather than one that like entrusts a budget into like a single individual.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, I don't really think, we are basically giving them like a blank check, to do whatever they want, right? I mean, they have to kind of like report back to the community, like maybe like on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And the community can still like decide, okay, like.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the community and more concerned about the other people in the squad and how their voice is kind of like heard.
Yeah.
Well, but that is kind of like, you know, also like one of the problems, right? Because, you know, with all of these people, you know, that are participating in the squad now, who, like, the community cannot make any judgment calls on these on the quality of these people. Maybe there are some bad actors in there, but, you know, because you don't want to like be the guy, you know, that points out, you know, that someone is bad. You don't want to be the one like that kicks someone else from this, right? And so having like one person, you know, that is accountable for this is going to solve that, right? And so I mean, I definitely see your point. I just think it doesn't scale.
So as an example, like let's say Swapper has super ambitious goal to like do everything on its roadmap over the next 3 months, and Zet basically decides that you need 50 grand, you need 50K a month for the next 3 months to accomplish those goals, and then he has that budget that's approved. He still is pulling from like these limited resources. Like if he pulls resources towards that goal, they're coming away from one of the other squads, right? Like how does that, how is that even going to work? Like,
well,
how does that number, how do you know that 50K is the right number, and that what do you do with the 50K?
Well, that is like relatively easy, right? So like, I mean, that would, in that specific case, that would present to the community and like probably like in a specific call, like his budget and his timeline, and then he defends that, right? And then we can ask like specific questions, like, how did you arrive at 50K? And then he probably has like some good answers in terms of like that he needs 6 full-time people on this for every month, or that he has like some other auditing expenses, etc. So we can grill Zed on this, right? And the thing is, if Zed is not in charge in, you know, just this example of, you know, hiring who he wants to hire, then he's also not, you know, in charge of actually like, you know, estimating, achieving his goals and the budget, etc.
Christopher, why can you grill a scout but not the whole team?
Well, because, you know, bandwidth.
I think accountability, it becomes a little bit tricky, right? Like, I mean, I think it's all public, so you could do that, right? You can go to anybody, but I think it's good for people to know, like, who is, like, if you have a question about the timeline, like a roadmap, like, who should you go to, like, first, right? You should be able to see everything, like who all is working on that currently, and you could ask anybody any question if you really wanted to, but like, I generally agree with what Christopher's saying, is like there should be somebody accountable for each of the squads. I think to balance out kind of like that, you know, the influence or power that may come with that kind of squad scout, if that's what we're calling it, whatever it is, I think some kind of like peer-to-peer review on terms of like worker performance, or like worker, like, you know, yeah, whether people are living up to their worker proposals, to like balance that out. Like, so maybe, for example, you know, for Q1, like the Omen squad is auditing like the Swapper squad, and the Swapper squad is auditing the Mesa squad, and the Mesa squad is auditing the Omen squad or whatever, and they're involved in like some of their PR review, etc. Right, and that maybe put some kind of checks on like, some of that.
Yeah,
that's just a thought.
Something like that could work, right? But it would also introduce like a lot of overhead. My main concern is, you know, let's just assume, you know, I mean, I'm not talking about like anyone's, you know, but just like this extremely hypothetical scenario now, right? So we have Zed, you know, he's working on Swapper, and he's presenting like this budget and what he wants to do, right? But then like all the other people who want to work on Swapper as well, I mean, obviously they are not. I want to stress this. This is an extremely hypothetical scenario, right? But imagine they are all bad actors, right? But the community cannot decide that, right? But they are like saying, they are like schmoozing to the community, and they are saying, we want to participate in that. You know, we would be doing this for relatively little money, right? But then like that would have basically almost no chance of achieving his goals if the community more or less decides who has to work with that on Swapper.
Christopher, if you I'm curious why the DXdao itself doesn't need a scout, or do we have a scout? Like I'm talking about the mothership.
I'm sorry, I didn't get this question.
Like, who's responsible for the DXdao?
I think that should be like that shouldn't have a squad. Or
Yeah,
Yeah, I
my
think we
point
want to
is, like-
avoid hierarchy because that's like the whole thing. To
my
me, that's
point
the
is-
whole point of a DAO. Right? But yeah.
It seems like the DXdao doesn't need a person who like the community can grill. Why does a squad needs someone who needs who's like one person to contact?
I think so. Like just to add in here, I think it's just for the sake of having someone accountable for that specific thing. I don't think there's nothing formal. There's no like contract that allocates Zet the actual or what do we call it, scout. So like so he's not like there isn't anything official. He's just like taking the role of that, and he's representing basically the interest of Swapper in front of the DXdao.
We're sort of already doing
Yeah.
this with the worker responsibilities. Right? Like Geronimo is the product kind of manager for Omen,
Exactly.
for Swapper. So I feel like we're already kind of 80% of the way there.
I think as John's saying, it's kind of like I would say it's better for us to put those guidelines in the workers' proposal. If you are a project lead or let's say a scout, you need to have those goals. And as any other worker proposal, we need to review like the previous month or the previous 2 months, or see how are these goals. And I think this is not about you being a scout or not. It's just all goals should be grilled. It doesn't depend on who you are. And I think like another thing also, you shouldn't have more responsibility. Like in a normal company, like if you have a huge risk or bigger risk, you probably also have better pay just because of that, or better kind of program because of that. Like if we're gonna talk about hierarchy here, we're going away from that DAO kind of thinking, and I don't know what I feel about it.
Yeah, I actually don't think I think we're mostly in agreement, and we're kind of like on like looking for like a baseball analogy. We're on like second base, or we're in like the third inning here of like building kind of towards this end. And I think we just filling out the details are I guess the devil is in the details here on kind of how we accomplish this. But I think like everyone like wants accountability. Everyone kind of sees how certain individuals can rise to kind of be a voice for a product to the community, and kind of take on that responsibility and answer to the community. And then just like the question is exactly how we do it. Like I'm happy to talk about this a bit more, but I did just want to like make sure we had time to kind of go over some of the other things that we were kind of hoping to hit on today. So I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts on this, or are we ready to move on to the other items?
Yeah, I think it would be good to get to the meetings, kind of the meta, like we need to flesh that what we were just discussing out, right, and like formalize some of it. And so where should is that going to be this meeting, or is that, do we do that on the Friday product strategy meeting instead? Like, I don't know, where do things go?
Yeah, you're talking about fleshing out this conversation we're having now, and
right,
like
just that, like, where are the like outputs of that? I mean, I think that what's missing really kind of to wrap that up, we kind of just need to figure out like where information goes. Because I think that was kind of the crux of it, right? It's like who sees what where, and
So this might be, it's kind of like the first point meetings, and then I think it relates to the productivity software stack. So we had a meeting, we have notes, where did they go? I think right now everything is being logged in the DAO Talk forum, but I don't know if that's really good for, I guess, DAO management, I'll call it. Then the question is, like I personally, like something that I find that's missing is, at the end of the meeting we should have action items, and then we should have a place where, okay, now Sky is supposed to do 1 and Zed is supposed to do 2, and these should go in a table somewhere with the meeting summary and those action items. So yeah,
I did a template in Airtable. I showed it to Sky and Chris and Keenan, think. And that template has exactly this thing. And you have the meeting notes, meeting recording, and then you have action items, and you can actually assign people to different things. And all of this is like collected in one nice view where you can look at it and go back and look at the history. There is templates for this. We could try out, but this is a high level thing. I would say, like, from going from nothing to this, I think it's a big step. Maybe we should just try like a smaller step first, and then go up to action points, and then we could try. I think take one step at a time. I think I scared the guys when I showed this template. It's a little bit much. I can try to find it and share it in the chat here.
What would be first good step?
First of all, just like having all notes and recordings and meetings on on the same place, on like a record, so you can go back and see what did you talk about and which day, and is there a recording. That's the first step, I would say. And next step is having action points and assigning people to those and tracking those.
Sky, as someone who I guess you kind of log our meetings now, I would say, or at least the recordings of those. And it's I always like when I see Sky uploaded a new video, because it's something to kind of check out. But I know that's something you're basically doing almost every day. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of how the logging reporting process goes.
Yeah. So what I've seen in other group meetups, whether some Gnosis meetings, or like the Omen Gnosis conditional token framework meeting that happens once a week, there's like a doc, a Google Doc or a HackMD, and there's literally a date with every, and this is all one, like now it's 30 pages long, right? It has the meeting date, has the agenda, and then it has notes and action items that happen during that meeting. And it really could be communal. So we all have it open at the same time we're doing the meeting, and we are typing into this communal doc, like a HackMD, and then that is basically a record of all the meetings. I mean, you can do it by topic, like by each type of meeting, or you could do all the meetings just in one doc together. But the note taking seems to work best when it's communal, unless you have like one dedicated recorder person who records, like the notes are usually linked to the agenda items, right? So that's, you basically need a note taker for every meeting. And so we're recording the call, which has a video, but if you had a note taker, which is in addition to the laid out prior agenda, so everyone's looking at the same document the entire meeting, that will become a record of that meeting. Versus like the Airtable idea that Zed's talking about, one person has to like fill out this form, and it goes and it gets sent off somewhere, but then it doesn't like link to every other meeting that also happened. So we could try this communal doc, which is just a record, a list of every meeting that's ever happened in a row, and the details and action items from each meeting.
On Airtable, actually, there is like, first of all, you can connect anything to anything. Like, it's literally, you can do any feature on it. But on this template, they connected something called discussion topics. So if you have a meeting and then you're discussing farming on Swapper, and then that topic could be like tagged, and then you have that topic and you can like click to it, and then you see all the meetings where you talked about farming on Swapper, sorted by the date, and also like you see the action points or whatever you connected to it. So there is like features connected to it that like it connects stuff. It just doesn't just give you the notes separated. But it depends on like how well we document these things and how well we use Airtable. But I would start out basic, because I know all this sounds good and like, but in reality, you actually need someone owning this and doing this for real, and not just doing it maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks. Either way, I would like both would work.
I kind of want to say that an action item should be like, Zet, you proceed with Airtable, Sky, you proceed with logging that, and I want to have time to do the same thing with Notion, and then after like a month or so, decide like what we want to use or what we want to formally use the most. But I think like, yeah, competition is good in these things.
As long as we structure it, I'm happy. Like, I'm not team Airtable, team Notion. I'm happy with either way we use it.
I feel like we don't even know what might work best, just because everything here is new.
Well,
yeah.
So
I think the thing that works best is what people do.
Yeah.
Right. And like whatever makes people like do it the most. And so I feel like I have done a pretty good job on the Gov meeting, but not a very good job on like the Swapper or product strategy meeting, I'd say, of like kind of doing this, of like kind of basically it's agenda, video, follow-up, right? And that needs to be like documented somewhere. But like the important thing that people need to do is document it, right? And so like whatever is the easiest way to make people document it, that's the easiest process.
I feel the powerful thing about a shared doc that is editable by more than one person. Like as we were doing this meeting, people could just write things below each agenda topic and action items. And like if 15 people are all able to just type something onto that, you're going to have a much better record than like one guy after the call trying to write.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So maybe that's an addition, right? So maybe that's like a kind of to this. It's like agenda, video, follow up, but during there's like in every meeting there's like a document that is kind of there. And I actually sometimes do this with the Swapper call. I like put the agenda, as I guess you're saying, you put the agenda in there and then you kind of share that document. Yeah, I feel like those are kind of good components of whatever like software or thing we would use.
Yeah, I mean, I know it works with Google Docs. If we don't want to use Google, we could try HackMD. And then there's like some more advanced ones. Like there's this one called ETH table or something that's like, apparently you can embed it into Jitsi, which I shared in the governance channel. But
we should integrate anything that integrates with Jitsi. Just that's our. It's slightly separate. I do think we need to like, besides like logging and how we're doing that, and I think I like kind of Elon's takeaways and kind of the action items here. There's like, I guess, 3 different systems we can kind of all try out, but each the important thing is like figuring out the best way to document those. I do think we need to have different meeting schedules than the weekly meetings. I think that was like a really great way of kind of kicking us off, but I think we need to think about these on and kind of plan ahead really for 2021. So I think this meeting is like the first step of that, right? You can see how every like 2 weeks we're kind of checking in on these resources. And I probably think every squad needs to have like a monthly call, right? That's just going over things with the community. And then maybe like every quarter, there's a like presentation of the status of the squad, and other kind of like monthly cadence meetings that we can kind of schedule around, so that we can build in these opportunities to like take macro views of DXdao rather than just like, you know, when we run into a wall being like, okay, we all need to stop what we're doing and like take a high level view. So what do kind of people think about like other meetings and like how to incorporate those? Or how do we schedule them? I find a big problem. I just find scheduling meetings besides the weekly meetings like very, very difficult.
Yeah, I like that idea of like a community call with each product, like that. It's something maybe that we haven't done anything like that, and that could be pretty cool. What about coordinating things at a higher, like at the highest kind of level of product strategy? Like where should that happen?
Well, I kind of had the ecosystem and product development was maybe a catch-all for that.
Well, I see. I'm scout.
Yeah, that's just scout for.
I think like maybe the product strategy meeting on Friday would be a good place to start talking about it. But I think we also should think about how to engage the wider community.
Right.
In if we're making a big decision, like what is the next? Are we going to launch another product, or are we getting out of something that doesn't seem to be going well? Like, you know, kind of like significant direction changes in any of the overall product strategy. I think.
Yeah, I feel like the weekly meetings are so into the weeds that like they're for everyone. You know, we're trying to manage on a day-to-day basis and not necessarily something that someone from the outside could jump in. And I think we don't have to do that every week, but we should kind of allow those opportunities.
Yeah, and I sort of that's what I was taking from what Christopher's comments are. Is like where are the engagement points for the general community, and how do you scale that so like the DAO, the collective, all the rep holders and DXd holders can actually engage. So I think we got to be like that's why I like that idea of the monthly squad community call or whatever the cadence is. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, so, sorry.
I was just going to say, is that something I think we could kind of. I'm kind of thinking as the takeaway here, or like how do we kind of push forward on say that is maybe by the end of the month or beginning of January, each of the squads have a monthly call that they're kind of presenting on, and I actually think this goes pretty hand in hand with some of the discussion that Pulp's been having about creating like more engagement with voters on larger macro level proposals. So I don't know, maybe we could like work towards each of these squads presenting some type of signal proposal in the next month or two, and that being a strategy document, maybe a little bit of budget, and then that would be put forth to vote to rep holders but also I think more importantly, like that we would kind of maybe go on a little bit of a road show in terms of like getting feedback on that proposal and also kind of explaining that proposal more to the community or like so I don't know how people think of that or other ideas to kind of get that started.
Sounds great.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just want to say I think it sounds great. Just the section of let's say the budget. I don't think we should touch on this right now. I mean, this is like first get it rolling, have still the budget structure the same as it is right now, and then as things progress, after the squad is already live, then for a few months, then Zet is kind of like, okay, let's build a roadmap for the squad and request the budget for the squad and etc.
Yeah, I kind of view it as like it's like one of those fake it till you make it, and so it's not so much that it's like hard codified now, but we're kind of like just doing it now to prepare for when it's like the real thing.
100%.
Yeah, it's also like I would also keen to experiment a little bit more, like with the Omen team. There's no reason why we like. I envision like an DXdao Omen squad DAO, which will get like the budget payment to the DAO itself, which like that's like one experiment we could try. The downside is that the Omen squad will like do the experiment on its own, and the rest of the squads will do like improve on their own without an on-chain system being used. Is it something you guys would be cool with?
Well, I'm not quite sure I followed. What was cool with
Yeah,
what?
so like if like I could imagine that the Omen team could prepare a roadmap with a budget for the next 3 months, which will go, instead of like a multi-sig or something, we would use an DXdao DAO stack DAO for like an Omen operational DAO, which could experiment with verifying markets on DXdao, Omen, and more stuff going forward. Just like as a starting point, experimenting with sub DAOs.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that could be great. I think Omen is also the most kind of baked for something like that. Could be a great experiment. I feel like a quarterly planning might be a bit too much. I mean, I would say like don't make it too detailed. But yeah, I mean, I think this is great.
And like that's the overall question. It could create a little bit of confusion. I think it's a right step forward, because I think, like Christopher said, this fractalization of squads into like on-chain systems, which are connected to the mothership, is probably the right way forward, just in terms of scalability. And we could start experimenting with like another good thing is that we would request the budget once. So it would just require one proposal. So we will eliminate mainnet proposals. If the Omen squad is like going the bad route as like as a team, so bad actors, we could all be slashed. So I'm actually very skeptical about established teams going bad at some point in time, because they have like a reputation at stake.
What do you mean getting slashed?
Like each of the Omen squad members has mainnet reputation, and the DXdao can always burn us out of the whole collective if we would do anything harmful.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. I thought like as the worst case consequence would be kind of like to stop the payment, but
that is another interesting idea, that like we get like 50% upfront, and then there's like a streaming payment where the DXdao could always like reverse the money and take it back.
Yeah, or maybe like some incentives on top, kind of like seeing. So this is the normal case, and then depending on some metrics that could be objectively evaluated, we could also give out a bonus if those metrics.
Yeah, I think that's like to go full blown experiments. The Omen squad could bet against ourselves as like an incentives for us with a prediction market to actually deliver those milestones, right?
And then DXdao is of course the arbiter.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see like this experiment with Omen, or like any other squad for that matter. Like I'm especially worried about all these worker proposals getting. I mean, it's great that we have that much traction. That's amazing. It's just really becoming too much to handle.
Isn't it good if we talked about this, you and me, Geronimo, example, if we get a designer pushing a worker proposal, we would like as designers and product owners could go in and comment first and say like, this is what we think. Like you ask the relevant people that is already workers, because first of all they have better view of what is going on inside of like working with DXdao. And then the second step would be like the community rep holders or workers could just go in and read, like, this is what the relevant people think about this first. So as an example, if someone wants to work with Swapper, I would be the one, like, I would 100% go in and comment on that and say, this is good, this is what we need, or you could edit whatever requirements you put in there and put up this goal, and then we could vote on this. Like, that opinion, I think, would weigh a lot. It's super hard to maybe just vote randomly on people. But I think that could be a big step for us to do. Just have the right people discuss this before voting.
Directing attention, I think, is like a key part of all of this. So in key, relevant, people looking at the right things. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's super hard. Like, to be like, I take this designer as an example. So his portfolio looked good, and from someone from outwards, that, like, me and Geronimo had a call with the designer, and in that call we got a lot of info, and that info gave us the impression that this guy wouldn't work out with us internally, and he needed to, like, have a couple of things fixed out before he could start working with us. So if that info didn't come to us through that call, we wouldn't be able to do those decisions to, let's say, not vote. So I went on to the DAO Talk post and wrote that comment. So if that comment didn't appear there, maybe this guy would go to Alchemy and put up a real proposal, and people would vote on it because the portfolio looks good. And this is a designer, which is much easier to see. Like, if it's a coder or programmer, like, we had 3 different coders here in a short time that did proposals, did trial work, and we kind of accepted all of them. And yeah, I would say it's been a flop, but I think we should have that filter, that relevant people doing these filters, like interviewing them and maybe just filter them out.
I do think we've done a good job the last week or two on worker proposals, just in people replying. I feel like even the existing ones, I feel like there has been more conversation in the forums on worker proposals than there has been in the past. But I agree completely with what Zeth's saying. Is they're just the follow up is important.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure if you guys saw it. Like, the Omen team tried to basically review themselves. It's actually not easy to do. Like, if you want to write an honest review about your teammates, it's you need to be careful to not be like fakey positive review style. You actually really want to, like, give an honest review for the collective, right? So and that's another signal for me that the Omen team could continue doing that, like, basically pushing themselves up to represent themselves as, like, very positive, as, like, fake. Like, how does the other squads know that we're actually, like, writing honest reviews? And I think fractalization and, like, sub-DAOs are the only solution, because then the sub-DAO itself needs to care about the healthiness of the DAO, of the sub-DAO, because we have a budget, we have a responsibility for the mothership.
So I feel like we have some good takeaways for, like, both squads and, like, the meetings component. So I think on the squads, we're kind of, at least I think as a takeaway, we need to probably get where we're having some type of community call for each product. And maybe by the end of year, we're building towards some type of proposal that is kind of about a roadmap or strategy document, whether that's for the quarter or the year, but that kind of proposal as an opportunity to engage the community. And then also that's kind of a proposal that will start the process, I think, of formalizing the, like, structure around these squads in terms of, like, budget and responsibilities. And then, like, the next step after that would be, like, what is the on-chain component of that structure? And then on the meetings component, I think it was Experiment with Airtable, Notion, and I think the one other, but that for each meeting we should have or each meeting that we're logging, we should have agenda, and then one shared notes slash follow up, and also follow up would be with action items or anything else, and then the last one would be video. Just because yeah.
Chris, can you see the chat?
I can't.
Okay, since you can't, that everything you just described already exists. It's live, and if you open it in the chat, you'll see it.
Where do you put this when it's done?
We need a plate. We should create a Keybase channel that is just links to the HackMDs of every meeting.
And what happens when it's gone a year, or like what happens when we like? How do you filter stuff?
Search the date.
So I don't like. This is where I like want us to use like Airtable or Notion. It's because of this. It's not because of the actual note taking. It's about just to have a database that is searchable, easy to access. You don't need accounts.
Yeah.
Like this is my thinking. I have no like. I like the idea of the note taking itself, but I don't like the idea of where to put it.
Okay, the link to the HackMD, because you need a shared document, so that you put the link to the HackMD in the Airtable.
Yeah, I mean that could